just next door. And let me assure you, I'm tremendously proud of Halifax and the things that really define Halifax, like the waterfront and like Granville Block and like St. Paul's Anglican and the Little Dutch Church. You know, that's part of our built heritage that we should all enjoy and all be proud of. And it certainly, I think, makes us what we are, not just as Nova Scotians, but as Canadians. This historic block is more than a century and a half old. Its commercial buildings were erected in the years following the Great Halifax Fire of 1859. And I know you've done it many times, but I invite you, when you get out of this auditorium, the speech I think was written for outside, to take a really close look at some of the buildings. They're magnificent in their architecture and their detail. These structures are surviving testimony of the role that Halifax played in Canada's commercial history at the end of the 19th century. Certainly, this neighborhood also shaped and was part and parcel of the social fabric of Halifax. For example, the Little Dutch Church, or the Deutsche Church. It's amazing how we managed to take a German word and make it into a Dutch word in Lunenburg County, but we did that quite well. In the early 1750s, some 2,500 German-speaking Protestants, mostly Lutherans, immigrated to Nova Scotia. Many settled in Lunenburg, but others stayed in the developing city of Halifax in an area that became known as the German lots. On one of these lots, they built a tiny wooden church, 38 by 19 feet, that immediately became the focus of that community. And what a history it had. Built in 1756, it is the oldest known surviving church building associated with the community of Canadians of German heritage. In the 1760s, Anglican services were being held in the church, and by 1800, it is deeded to the Church of England. Or take the other famous Halifax church, St. Paul's Anglican. It's the oldest building in Halifax, the oldest Anglican church in North America, and we cherish it for its role in the history and the development of Nova Scotia. St. Paul's continues to be a living and active church, and down through the years, St. Paul's has held some very special services. For royal jubilees, for the U.S. President Teddy Roosevelt, for the Titanic victims, for the Halifax explosion victims, and recently for those who perished on Swiss Air Flight 111. Today, it is valued as a landmark, open to visitors daily, and a national historic site. To me, this is what heritage is all about. St. Paul's Anglican, Granville Block, the Little Dutch Church provide a window into the past, into a long ago era to be sure, but that nevertheless helps shape who we are today. Our national parks, our national historic sites represent the very best that Canada has to offer, and for many communities, these special places represent the unique character of the area, giving its residents and visitors a strong sense of place. Canada's built heritage, featuring a rich and diverse combination of religious, military, prestigious, vernacular, industrial, and cultural sites, that's quite a sentence, plays an essential role in helping Canadians establish personal connections to their roots. Indeed, National Historic Sites contribute to tourism in over 400 communities across Canada through direct spending, visitor spending, and spin-off economic activity. As you know, earlier this year, our government adopted Canada's Economic Action Plan, which includes nearly $40 billion aimed at stimulating economic growth and job creation this year and the following year. The budget set aside $75 million for improvements to visitors' facilities in our national parks, national historic sites, and another $75 million for the protection of our national historic sites. Of this amount, $8 million has been allocated to Parks Canada National Historic Sites cost-sharing program, an amount that complements the $12 million coming from internal reallocations within the Parks Agency. Our government recognizes the importance of stimulating growth through key infrastructure investments, and that's why Parks Canada is investing $425,000 in the Granville Block National Historic Site as a way of simultaneously preserving our heritage and giving a boost to the Halifax and region economy. I personally think this is a terrific project. It's taking a very interesting approach. The first stage will be a preparatory assessment to see just what has to be done. Conservation experts will examine the current condition to determine the necessary work and make a plan complete with drawings and sketches. In this way, as the next stage of the project carries out conservation work on the roofs, on the facades, the windows, its heritage accuracy will be protected. For the Little Dutch Church, $20,000, of which Parks Canada is contributing $10,000, will be used to repoint brickwork, repair and repaint walls, windows, improve the ventilation system in order to control humidity and prevent future damage to the interior of the building. At St. Paul's Anglican Church, Parks Canada will cover half the cost of the $2,200 preparatory assessment in order to prepare for future replacement of the roof and the painting of the exterior. So ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing that a lot of good work is about to be done for both our heritage and our economy here in Halifax. And and how exactly will the National Historic Sites Cost Sharing Program stimulate the economy? First, by creating jobs. Many skilled construction and conservation professionals will be doing work on a number of historic places across Canada and in the months to come. In Halifax, this means new opportunities for local tradesmen, businesses, and second, by promoting the tourism sector. The Government of Canada made a targeted investment in National Historic Sites because it recognizes the role that these special places play in stimulating growth in tourism and in helping to ensure that Canada is a destination of choice for travelers. Our government understands the potential that our national parks, national historic sites, and national marine conservation areas offer environmentally, culturally, and economically. The cost-sharing program is a valuable and a very interesting tool which will bring dedicated people and organizations together in pursuit of a worthy common goal, heritage conservation in Canada. Our government is committed to protecting Canada's heritage buildings and national historic sites. These special places are symbols of our country and tangible connections to our history. You know your speech is getting long when you have to take a drink of water.
As long as it's Canadian water, that's great.
We believe that economic stimulus through infrastructure investments in the cultural sector is vitally important to economic recovery. This kind of investment makes me very proud of the government and proud to be Canadian. There are 449 National Historic Sites in Canada. I didn't realize that before I got this speech this morning. 162 are owned by Parks Canada, and other owners of National Historic Sites include Aboriginal groups, educational institutions, businesses, religious groups, private owners, and other levels of government. Parks Canada's National Historic Sites Cost Sharing Program will provide federal leadership in the protection of Canadian historic resources not administered by the federal government, and will provide support for the conservation and public presentation of these unique and irreplaceable resources. I'm moving on. In closing, I would invite everyone here to spend some time in Canada's magnificent national parks and national historic sites. We live in a country blessed with abundant natural beauty from coast to coast to coast, and the Canadian journey, fascinating stories. I encourage you to take advantage of the teeth freeze currently in effect in all the parks and historic sites managed by Parks Canada to enhance your summer vacation, your next day trip, or to discover and enjoy unique treasures close to your home. I appreciate everybody coming out this morning. It's a beautiful day. August has proven to be a great month so far. We're going to forget about July. It is a unique opportunity for all of us to celebrate our built heritage right here in Halifax. Certainly celebrate our culture. And in Nova Scotia, we're a pretty tight little bunch here. Most of us, we got the 4-generation rule. If you go back 4 generations, you're related to somebody, and without a doubt. But in my own case, on the Little Dutch Church, the tradition in my family, and I was reading the date, being built in 1756, so it's not matching up. But my original ancestor, Alexander Keddy, immigrated from Scotland, came through London with an English bride to Halifax in 1740.